Officer here at Lifehouse. I'd like to just begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people, the Eora Nation, and pay respects to elders past, present, and any Indigenous people who are joining us here today. It's a real pleasure to welcome Minister Hunt here to O'Brien Lifehouse, and also Fiona Martin, the member for Reid. She tells me this is one of her old stomping grounds, having spent a lot of time just across the road here, and it's wonderful to have you both here. Let me also say a big thank you to Minister Hunt for officially opening just now the Sarcoma and Surgical Research Centre. I'd like to also acknowledge the fact that the reason the Surgical and Sarcoma Research Centre came into being is as the result of a generous grant from the federal government's Community Health and Hospitals program. Without that, we clearly would not be standing here today. The centre will bring together a whole lot of people working in a large multidisciplinary team: physicists, biologists, clinicians, biomedical engineers, who will all collectively turn their mind to dealing with and solving important clinical problems. The way in which that will work will be focused on innovation, and this campus actually already has a long history of innovation in healthcare. Together with our partners, Royal Prince Alfred Hospital and the University of Sydney, Lifehouse is an important component of that innovation, and in many of the things we do, we have brought that to bear on the kinds of problems we deal with many of our patients with cancer. In this particular situation, our new, and I'll probably get this wrong, but I will try, selective laser sintering 3D printer will allow us to actually tackle problems that we really could only have dreamt of in the past. Using it and high-tech materials such as PEEK, which stands for polyethyl ether ketone, we will be able to do things that ultimately benefit our patients. Now, I actually don't really know, although I've just seen one, what a selective laser 3D sintering printer is, nor do I really know very much about PEEK. What I do know, however, is that as a healthcare organisation, our focus is on patients, on helping patients, and on giving them hope. And by using the most innovative techniques, by collaborating with our important partners, we're in a position to change the lives of patients with whom we deal. We already produce on this campus some of the very best outcomes anywhere in Australia, and indeed anywhere in the world, in the areas of sarcoma surgery and head and neck surgery and the associated treatments. But those outcomes do come at a cost. There's a cost in terms of potential disfigurement, in terms of disability, and sometimes in the waiting times that it takes to get the equipment we need to treat these people in the way we would like. The innovations that are going to come out of this new centre promise to actually improve all of those things. It promises to make it easier to do operations without the disfigurement and without the disability, and certainly it promises to cut down the time that people need to wait. All of this, of course, feeds in to a better outcome, a better quality of life for those patients and for the families and people around them who care so much for them. So, once again, on behalf of the very many patients who I expect will benefit from this, I'd like to thank the federal government for contributing the money that has allowed this to happen, and welcome you, Mr. Hunt, to come up and say a few words.
Look, thanks so much to Michael and to Doug and to Eileen, to Richard and to Natalka and our amazing researchers, people such as Will and Heidi and so many others that have contributed to what we saw today. And to paraphrase Natalka, as Michael was saying, today is very much about hope, but something that Fiona and I talk about, and Fiona Martin, member for Reid, is a graduate of this university, of this school, And she thinks very much about mental health and about vision as well. And it reminds me of a very different person in a very different place. T. Lawrence, who is better known as Lawrence of Arabia. The dreamers of the night may dream their dreams, but it is the men and women who dream with open eyes in the light of day who help to shape and mould the world to come. And these are dangerous people, for they define that which is to be before us. And in the nicest possible way, I see a lot of dangerous men and women, people who imagine what can be, and you transform it. You actually change people's lives. Like, we know that sarcoma affects 1,800 Australians in any one year, and that the results can either be catastrophic in terms of lives lost, or tragic in terms of lives debilitated. And you offer a pathway through both the hope and the vision to save lives and to protect and improve lives. And that's a pretty good mission to have. That is being mission driven in its finest, best sense. And so against that background, we also know that what Chris O'Brien Lifehouse does is this on a grand scale. That you contribute to this amazing Australian story where we have 69%, the equal highest survival rate to cancer in the world. There's still a long way to go, but that journey started down here and is already up. But we know that those lifespans can be extended, that those case outcomes can be improved. That's the inexorable pathway we're on. And I see someone like Chris Milross, and Chris is there with us on the board of Cancer Australia. And Cancer Australia is helping to peg out those boundaries. So we still lose 48,000 people. 145,000 cases are likely to be diagnosed this year and more next year. And so that means there's a great task to take things forward. Against that background, we've got a series of programs, the Medical Research Future Fund, a 10-year plan, and that includes our transformative missions, our stem cell mission, our genomics mission, the work that we're doing with brain cancer, amongst others. At the same time, we have our rare cancers and rare diseases clinical trials program, and there will be so many of your patients who will benefit from a $600 million program over the course of a decade. One thing that Eileen we talked about is longevity of funding, and to know that that's there for a decade. And who's going to come along 10 years from now and say we're dispensing with the rare cancers, rare diseases clinical trials program? We've sort of shamelessly embedded it within the system without ever telling the Department of Finance. Don't tell the Department of Finance. And to lay out that framework, and then as part of that, we built the Community Health and Hospitals program, and the architects of that, Kylie and Brett, are here with us today. And for them, who work with me to see that translated to your work in the Sarcoma Surgical Research Centre, is to see real patient benefits from their work. And so all of this is incredibly meaningful. Patients we passed on the way through. Some of them may be beneficiaries, or their children, or their grandchildren. And that's something pretty special. So on a day like today, just pause and say to yourselves, I'm involved in something significant. And whether it's the plasma gas work and the ability to activate the peak platform, whether it's the plasma gas work and the way it might provide antimicrobial resistance and surface protection, not just in surgical operations, but more broadly within the community and surface. These are really exciting things. So it just is a pleasure. Every day is challenging and exciting, but it's a pleasure. But today is just a real thrill to join you and thank you and honour you and say that in the end, what Chris O'Brien Lifehouse is doing at the University of Sydney and all of our researchers and clinicians is very simply saving lives and protecting lives writ large. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and that actually concludes the formal part of the proceedings, but we'd like to invite everybody for a very COVID-safe and socially distanced cup of tea and some little cakes. So thank you all for coming.